And the first time I ever saw anybody hang sheetrock, I was absolutely dumbfounded that anybody could do this. And it was in a small grocery store down in Harrisburg, Oregon, I think. And my uncle was taking me around, showing me what drywall was and framing and so on. So these three guys were on a big scaffold. And this small grocery store was on a rake ceiling, slope ceiling. And those guys were up on the scaffold, probably 2 or 3 stages high. And they were nailing sheetrock onto the joist up there. And I couldn't believe it. They sounded like a machine gun because those guys could nail drywall, and they lifted it up manually. There was one guy on the floor, and he would push the sheetrock 12 footers up to these guys, and then they'd roll it up on their heads and nail it off. And I'm saying that's impossible. How in the hell do they do that? Well, 6 months or a few months later, I started off just, scrapping and cleaning up and stuff. But a few months later, I got to start doing drywall.
When he started in the construction business or the drywall business early on, he actually worked at one time for some relatives, had a drywall company, some cousins. So that was kind of how he got started in the drywall business. He worked for a relative's company. I went to work for the Nunley Supply in Salem. We moved to Salem from Ukiah, California. And I got in the trade, and because my aunt and uncle had a drywall company, and with my cousins, and so that's where I got in the trade at in about 1967. He went into the carpentry trade and learned drywall early on in the probably mid 60s. So anyway, he started into the industry probably before I was born, maybe around the time my sister was born, and then slowly got into starting a couple of small businesses with some early partnerships, and then eventually broke off and just did his own thing with my mom. Probably late 69, I started doing side jobs also, and eventually kind of became a journeyman drywall hanger and framer. It always seems when you're first married and you got kids, you're broke.
We started this business like in our basement, and probably even before that. And gas pumps at our house. We lived, eat, and breathed Western partitions. I mean, from the beginning. We had one car. We had no health insurance.
Had a mini warehouse in Salem that we had, like a 24-footer or something, because we didn't have enough room at the house to store, equipment and stuff. So Pam ended up being the bookkeeper and right-hand person to our company. She took care of all the books, and I never had to worry about that side of the business.
I was helping Dad with spreadsheets when I was 12 in the basement. He would give me the numbers, and I would run the calculations on these big white spreadsheets.
That's the way we estimated, and it was done at night usually. And then I was on the road a lot. We lived in Salem for quite a while when we first got started. And so I commuted back up here, and then we eventually moved up here. So Salem wasn't a great economic town back in the late 70s and early 80s. So we lived in Salem, but my parents commuted up to Portland for 20 or 25 years.
And like when I started working here, I mean, I would ride with Dad in his pickup. And I'd be half awake and Dad would be trying to talk to me and I'd be like, let me sleep.
I remember maybe early in high school, Dad needed some drywall material moved on a job from one floor to another. So me and one of my buddies went out and hoisted, several hundred sheets of sheetrock from one floor to the other.
I remember there was a job in Salem, and we lived up here. We had a job in Salem. I had this old beater truck.
I think the heater switch was somehow broke into the on position.
I had to go to a meeting or something, and Angela and Pam said, and we needed to get this stuff hauled off this job, scrap. So they said, well, I'll do it. They'll do it. So, and it was hot, very, very hot right then.
And it was in the summer, and we had to have the windows down, and there was fireproofing in the back, and it was swirling through the windows.
And so they drove the old truck, and they cleaned up the job site.
We were dressed for work.
And they were dressed
there was
more in office.
Drywall dust blowing around inside the cab of the truck.
It's kind of a crummy old truck. I think we got rid of that a little later.
My first paid job was as a receptionist, and our office was on 14th in Alberta. I made minimum wage, which I looked it up because I wanted to know, was $3.10 an hour. I started at that. And then I've done accounts payable. I've done a lot of payroll and sort of project manager. I did it on one job, One Oak Plaza downtown. I'm not like a strong enough person to be a project manager. Like, I don't like confrontation. And then I just sort of worked into, I call it offline accounting roles. Just whatever needed to be done, I do now.
Spent a few early years working out in the field. Came into the office, started learning, basic estimating. And then as soon as you land a job, then it's like, okay, well, now you got to project manage it. So you're learning how to project manage small jobs. And that is largely what I did for the bulk of my career. For many years, I'll say 80 or 90% of my career was estimating, or, as time went on, of course, you learn how to do larger and larger projects. So I'm bidding on larger jobs, and I start to project manage larger jobs.
If we did not have good people around us, we would be nowhere. I mean, we'd still be small. It's all everybody else.
I learned, and I always been kind of that way anyway, because I like people and I want them to be successful. And so that was my, kind of core value would be to hire people, and you want to take really good care of them. And that's the only way you're going to grow. And you got to reproduce yourself, and then add really strong players, and then really take good care of them. That's my core value. And, of course, honesty and all that stuff comes in.
But my dad always surrounded himself with good people. I mean, we just started it. It's the other people that have taken it further.
And boy, when times are good, we want to share with our employees. And I think it's most important. I know some companies around here, still fairly small companies, and they stayed small, I believe, because they didn't take care of their people.
Guys in the field are way smarter than me.
They got to be there every day. I mean, they got a whole team of, guys showing up every day to go to work, and they got to be there early, and they got to have the material there and the work laid out for them. And, an estimator or a project manager can, we have our sick days and stuff too, but, those field guys, they got 10, 20, 100, 200 guys working under them. I don't think they have too many sick days.
One thing I've always believed, oh no, I'm gonna get emotional.
You're good.
Is, I mean, the money's made in the field. I mean, it's the guys and gals that are doing the work. I mean, we're just paper pushers. They're doing it every day. In the cold, in the rain, in the heat, you know? I mean, that's how the money's made.
One of my relatives, when we lived in California still, it kind of, I was fresh out of high school before we moved back up to Oregon. And she had said to me, you're something to the effect, you're kind of a nincompoop or something, you know, kind of, you're not going to amount to anything. I've never forgot that. Just a great woman, but she kind of woke me up there when she said that to me. And I thought, I'm going to prove her wrong. So that gave me a kick in the pants. You know, when you're fresh out of high school, you're pretty stupid. You don't know what the hell's going on.